This is a Fantasy Ladder Podcast, episode 48. We are now on part two of the conference championship preview. So once again, I'm your host, Steve, at Fantasy Ladder. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, which of course is the IDP Guys Network, so you don't miss any other content from the channel, from the Fantasy Ladder Podcast, as well as the other great Dynasty content that's coming out here through the winter and the spring, leading up to and after the NFL draft. So don't miss that. So, uh, part one, we covered the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. So, part two here, we're going to cover the opposite sides of those matchups, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers. So, just going to review quickly the schedule of the games for this upcoming Sunday, go over some of the betting lines, and then we'll bring on our guests to discuss. So the early game on Sunday, San Francisco at Philadelphia, 46-point over under, and the Eagles are favored at -2.5. Then, of course, the later game, Cincinnati at Kansas City, line set at 47 points over under. And there has been kind of interesting movement in the line with maybe Patrick Mahomes' ankle feeling pretty good. So opened at -1.5 for Cincinnati. It is now -1 for the Chiefs, maybe depending on what you're looking at. So either way, very interesting movement here. But we are going to bring back our representatives of the 49ers and the Bengals from last week, Andrew Hall and Jeff Lambert. So we'll bring them on. So Andrew, please remind us where we can find you and your content.
Oh yeah, thanks again for having me, Steve. You're apparently our lucky charm. It's working. We're gonna keep going. Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at AndrewHallFF. I still write for Fantasy Pros. I just had an article come out this morning, I think it was actually, and so I'll be doing a couple of things with them, Dynasty related, all off season.
I love it. All right, Jeff, where can people find you and what do you got coming out?
You can find me on Twitter at Jeff Lambert77. Most of my content comes out on Going for Two or Going for Two Live. I also write for Fantasy Pros as well. Not quite as often as Andrew, but about once a month I get an article out on Fantasy Pros, so you can see my stuff there as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we're going to start with the Cincinnati Bengals, and before we get into the reaction of the win there against the Bills, just wanted to mention just one of the best post-game quotes I think I can remember in a long time. Joe Burrow says, "Better send those refunds," regarding the neutral game site. So just definitely a cold-blooded quote there. Love it. He has every right to have that kind of an attitude, which is awesome. It's just one more chip on the shoulder, and again they proved everybody wrong. So Andrew, would love to hear your reaction to the win in Buffalo against Buffalo. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, yeah, and I think I was looking for a good game. I'm not sure if we got it. I don't. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be dismissive. I just feel like the Bills came out kind of flat. I don't. I did not expect that. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody really expected that. It was a snowy game. I believe that was Jamar Chase's first ever snow game. I know Burrow's obviously played the snow, but it's been a while, and in college he didn't have a lot of that. So there was a lot of hesitation on my side as a Bengals fan heading into that game. Like, man, are we going to be able to pull this off? This is the Bills' home field. DeMar was at the game. I think it ended up being 6-point underdogs. Like that's a lot of points. That's ridiculous. And I was taking Bengals +6 everywhere I could because I thought it'd be a close game. I didn't think it was going to be the quote unquote blowout it ended up being. I was shocked, honestly. When the Bengals came out and scored first, I'm like, great, this is what we got to do. It's going to be a high scoring game. And then the Bills went 3 and out. And then the Bengals scored again. And then the Bills went 3 and out. I'm like, what? I mean, our defense is good, but this is surprising. So I still, even until the last buzzer, until the last whistle, I was still like, man, maybe they could pull this out because it just didn't feel right. So again, I'm not trying to cut on the Bills or anything. I think that even their fans would say that just wasn't the game they expected. And I don't want to say we got lucky. I think we outplayed them. We outmatched them. I just hope we've got some left in the tank because I don't want to say we, used all of our luck and all of our skill on that game. We still have potentially 2 more games to get through. So, yeah, it was a hell of a win. I'm happy about it, but it was almost unsatisfying in a way.
No, certainly. Yeah, it was fascinating because they basically entered the game right where they left off on that unfinished Week 17 contest. So very encouraging to see they could just go right back to it. And then just really the Bills, like you said, just came out very flat and just really couldn't find any kind of answer. The Bengals kept all of their wide receivers below 40 or less yards. The only one who got over that was the tight end Dawson Knox. But either way, just a fantastic uh, showing of defense and maybe just maybe a little bit of a flat offense there. But yeah, they absolutely dominated that game. And the big key for me in that game actually was Joe Mixon, just an absolute
Yes.
menace. Chunk gain after chunk gain. Really, that the Bills had no answer for him. So that was enormous.
Well,
So
he was playing angry. I mean, there were a couple of runs that just looked like old Joe Mixon, where he was just leaning his head down and taking hits. And I think there was one against Poyer in the beginning of the second drive, I think it was, where it just looked like he didn't have anywhere to be except in that hit. Like he was literally his whole body was like, I'm going to hit him. And I haven't seen that in Mixon a lot. I mean, a couple of games here and there when he kind of gets in the mode, and I'm not sure. Maybe it was the cold, maybe it was the pressure, maybe it was the all the bulletin board material. I don't know what it was, but yeah, Mixon definitely seemed like he had a chip on his shoulder that I was pleasantly surprised to see. Let's put it that way. It was like, where has this been for the past few weeks? So yeah, if Mixon turns it on and the rest of the offense is cooking like that, we might have ourselves another good game this week. I just worry we burned it out too early and kind of flamed out a little bit too quickly here. We'll see. We'll see.
yeah, that is always the benefit of having the first round bye, which Kansas City has, of course. But yeah, it's like they seem to be able to hold it all together, and should be another good one for sure. But with very interesting line movement in the game, as I was saying on the top here, open with Cincinnati favored at 1.5, and now it has swung to Kansas City at -1 at home, possibly because Mahomes is just a freak of nature, and his ankle apparently is okay. Every
Yeah.
day here we're seeing him do a little bit more practice, and it's that's getting a little tiresome. But it is still fascinating to see he is still walking with a normal gait and is not like with any kind of limping or anything. So it's pretty fascinating to see that. Going into this matchup now, a rematch of the AFC Championship game of last year, of course. Were you confident in the Bengals? Were you not confident in the Bengals going up here against the Chiefs?
Well, I mean, again, I think the way the defense played last week against a potentially high-powered Bills offense and kind of figuring out what they needed to do, I feel like Lou Anarumo and the defense is going to do it again this week. Whether Mahomes is hobbled or not, I'm really not concerned about that. We got to go out there and execute our game plan. So the defense is kind of where I'm the most confident. If I'm being honest, I think that's where we have the most chance to make a difference. Again, I think the offense for Kansas City kind of funnels through one player right now, not Mahomes. I mean, technically Mahomes, but Kelsey is kind of the one guy you got to look out for. Pacheco's a beast and can break off a 25-yard run anytime. But the outside weapons, the other hyphenates in Smith-Schuster and Valdez-Scantling don't really scare me too much. I think our DBs can hang with them. I don't think either one of them is a game breaker. Now, granted, they can break open a game, but they're not someone I'm game planning against. Kelsey's the one we got to worry about. I think we bring down some safety help. We bring down linebackers. We get everybody on that. On the other end of that, on the other answer to your question, where I'm the most nervous is on our offense. I think, I mean, again, it's hard to say, but Chris Jones and some of the other guys on that defense, and Justin Reed, I think it was the other guy. There's a lot of players on that defense that just have been beat by the Bengals a few too many times, if I'm being honest. The Chiefs have had our number in a lot of those games. I mean, from what I recall, the Bengals are 3-0 against the Chiefs. But most of the time in those games, the Chiefs have been ahead and the Bengals have been able to pull it out and come back from behind to win. I think that has probably put more of a chip on the defense's shoulder as the Chiefs to be like, we had this game. We need to do a little bit better. And I think they're going to pull it off. So I am leaning, obviously, wanting to pull from my Bengals, but the better in me is picking the Chiefs right now. I feel like that's probably where the line should be. I feel like the line, when it was favored for the Bengals, I was like, nope, I don't want to be the favorite. So I'm happy to not be the favorite now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I think there's just too much momentum on the Mahomes side here. I just think the bulletin board material is all going their way. All the leaning is going their way. All the energy from last week, we got to do that again. The Chiefs obviously had a good game last week, but Chad Henne drove him down 98 yards and got a touchdown. Not to say he'll do that every drive, but that's where that game was. That was something that could happen. I don't know if we have a lot left in the tank. So I'm worried as a Bengals fan, which is exactly where we should be. It's where I'm familiar. So it's right where I'm best.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. You don't want to get too high on cloud
Nah.
nine. You want to keep yourself grounded, and I think that's a good place to be. Absolutely. So you're kind of nervous about the outcome of the game. If you had to predict the score, where would you put the score on this one? I think another high score and affair. You think it'll be maybe kind of in the middle there?
I keep going back and forth on this, and usually I have a pretty good gut feeling for what I think the game's going to be. I had one last week and I was way off, right? So I'm kind of reevaluating my gut process on this. I feel like it's probably going to be 24-21 Chiefs.
Okay.
Under the under, it's going to be over the spread, things like that. I just worry with the weather and with Mahomes and all this. I think Mahomes throws 3 touchdowns and they get a field goal to win it at the end. And again, I'm not trying to say that to be like an anti-Bengals or an anti-Jinx. I just feel like the time could be up here. That being said, it could easily be 24-21 Bengals. I don't know if it's going to be that high scoring, I guess, where I'm going with this. It reminds me more of the Bengals Ravens game. It feels like one of those matchups, a familiar opponent when it's all on the line, and it's going to be a lot of defensive back and forths. I hope it's not a lot of 3-and-outs. I hope it's not boring. I hope there's not a lot of turnovers, and it's not like a 10 turnover game or something crazy like that. But yeah, I don't know what to expect here. So I'm just kind of going in and saying, hey, whatever will be, will be. Hell of a season, no matter what happens. I'm just happy to be here. And if we win, I'll be on your show next week, Steve. I can't wait.
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had Axton Harding on from IDP guys talk about the Chiefs last night, and he's particularly nervous about the Chiefs defense. So he was thinking like
He's the other
the
way.
best way. He's the other
Yeah.
way. So he was thinking like the best way to handle the Bengals offense is just have nice long drives, convert on these third downs, keep Joe Burrow off the field, right, and really try to maximize the time that your defense is on the field. So it's going to be very interesting, but it's really funny. Like I'm as jaded of a Philadelphia fan as they come, so I get especially nervous in these big moments. But it is just kind of a natural thing that occurs.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
certainly.
Bengals still haven't won a Super Bowl, right? We're still getting disrespected in a sense, and that's a familiar spot. So it's hard to really do it. Changing our stripes as things have been talked about as a Bengals player and Bengals fans and things like that. I mean, it's tricky being a Bengals fan right now because we're not used to the success yet. We've had a pretty fair amount of it, and I just hope it continues. And I do believe that Burrow is the guy. I think he's cool, calm, and collected. He puts
Yep.
the team on his back. There aren't a lot of players in the league that I would trust with that. So and part of me is kind of just as a spectator at this point. I'm doing the same things I did last week. I'm trying to be as little stitious as I can be here, and not superstitious, just tiny, a little bit
It
stitious.
was a little stitches. That's right.
But yeah, like doing what I can to help the team. But in all honesty, I know it's out of my hands, and whatever will be, will be. And it was a hell of a season. So whether the Chiefs or Bengals win, I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thanks for coming on again, and best of luck to your Bengals, and hopefully we'll see you back for the next one.
Hopefully, Jeff and I both are back next week,
Yep,
right, Jeff?
yep.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get there, buddy. I would love
It'll
a
be
Niners Bengals Super Bowl.
Niners Bengals Part 3, right?
That's right. And it's honestly, come on, it's our turn. Let's get us a chance here. Let's see what we can do. But no, thanks so much for having me, Steve. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. All right. So, Jeff, now moving on to the big one as far as we are concerned, right? Um, 49ers, of course, take care of business against the Cowboys last week. Some of the key notes I had on this one was Dak went back to throwing a couple interceptions after looking as sharp as attack against the Buccaneers. Then, of course, the Tony Pollard injury, not necessarily shifted the course of the game, but definitely a devastating loss to that Cowboys defense. But still, Brock Purdy took care of the ball. Offense was still rolling. Defense still looks stout. Would love to hear your reaction of how that game went against the Cowboys.
Yeah, so I think one thing you mentioned there that was really underrated and undersold is the loss of Tony Pollard. Like he was like their other explosive guy other than CeeDee Lamb that I thought could really hurt us in the passing game and in the running game. And when he went down and it was Zeke back there, Zeke is not the same player he used to be. So we don't have to worry about him as much. It wasn't as big of a deal. He's good at short yardage. He can catch out of the backfield, but he's not going to take it to the house like Pollard could. So that kind of, in that sense was a big key to the game. And then, I talked about last week about Micah Parsons being a big part and how I was worried about him coming off that side of the line that we're weakest. And, we put together a very good game plan to make sure that he wasn't a factor, and he literally was not a factor at all. I think he had like 1 or 2 tackles the entire game, which is crazy to think about this great player being shut down like that. So that was, 2 huge points of the game. We couldn't stop CeeDee Lamb. That I did predict that he was just killing us, but getting that little bit of pressure on Dak and forcing those 2 turnovers really is what I think what did them in. Without those 2 turnovers, because one of them especially was in the red zone. They're going down to score. They could have got, that touchdown there would have changed the game, but they ended up turning the ball over, and we got it back and then scored some points before the half. And that was huge because, if Dallas goes there and scores, they get the ball in the second half and they go down and score again. And then, we can't come back after that. So I think those were really two key points there. And one of the things that I did like about my team, we made an adjustment. The whole first half, I kept yelling at my team to stop trying to run the ball outside. They kept trying to outflank the Dallas Cowboy defense, and they're just too fast. We just couldn't do it. I was like, we need to run downhill, run at them. And we put Elijah Mitchell back there, who's a bit more of a bruiser than Christian McCaffrey is. I mean, he was just crushing them up the middle. I mean, it was 4, 5, 6, 7 yards per carry going down the middle. And they finally kind of figured it out. And once that happened, and once they got Kittle involved over the middle of the field, I felt much better about my team and, how things went after that.
Yeah, no, definitely, and having him back is so critical in general, just to give McCaffrey a breather, but also he was having a little bit of like the calf tightness or cramping or whichever was going on there. So really critical to have him back at this stage. But obviously, when McCaffrey's on the field, you have to account for him because he can still catch the ball better than like anybody else out of the backfield. So just just a really devastating duo there. Just as an Eagles fan, not really looking forward to that at all. But moving on to the matchup here against the Eagles, the 49ers did open the week with a couple of vets missing practice. I think Deebo Samuel opened, not practicing, as well as McCaffrey. And I believe there's one other. Might have been Elijah Mitchell, but probably just like a maintenance thing. I'm not so sure if that's really going to be a major concern. Just like the typical vet kind of rest and things like that. The guys have been here before and everything else. So not as critical early in the week. Is that a area of concern for you or not so much?
No, Christian McCaffrey's been taking days off throughout the season, just in general. I do think he has a calf issue, which is concerning. If it flares up during the game and we have to go to Elijah Mitchell, then Elijah Mitchell also isn't the picture of health either. He's been having some injuries. So if we end up, without those 2 guys, then we're a little bit in some trouble there. I do think the way to beat the Eagles, similar to Dallas, is to run at you, just like the Commanders did in the game that they beat y'all. They just kept running Brian Robinson over and over and over and over again down the middle. And that's kind of what I think we need to do. We need to do exactly the same thing and just pound them. It slows the pass rush down. It wears those guys down a little bit, so the pass rush isn't quite as effective when we do have to drop back to pass. So I'm hoping those 2 guys are both healthy enough to be able to do that for us.
No, definitely. Yeah. Another thing is just so fascinating. Just the legend of Brock Purdy just grows with each week. Now last week he didn't exactly fill up the stat score or the box score necessarily with stats, but still is taking care of the ball. He's not making mistakes, and that's all you really want. You don't need to be flashy. All you need is that W, right? So for me, he's probably like the big key in this game because of the Eagles' pass rush, because of the environment with him playing on the road in Philadelphia, of course, in the cold and everything else. He, to me, kind of represents what could be the real clinching point of the matchup. Say everyone's at the top of their game, and if there's one player who's like just kind of slightly below where he needs to be, if that's Brock Purdy, I think that may be the difference. I'm expecting a very close game here, but between the two, just again, top 5, but both teams are top 5 in total offense. Both teams are top 5 in total defense. So be really fascinating to see how this plays out. So going into this matchup, what would you say you're the most confident in? And what would you say you're the least confident in? And then who would be the key players for both teams for you?
So confidence-wise, I think our running game is what I'm really confident in. I do think as long as McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell are healthy, I do think we can run on the Eagles. I think that's one place the Eagles kind of struggle at. They are awesome at pass rush, And if they can get you in a game where they're just dropping back 100 times, they're going to get to the quarterback eventually. So I
Gotcha.
do like our running game against the Eagles, and hopefully Shanahan has a good game plan to run at them and not around them, because they are fast, just like the Dallas Cowboys are. The thing I'm most worried about, and probably our biggest weakness in general, we've had a bunch of injuries on the back end, is our secondary. Our secondary
Mm,
gets us some big plays. Even our he got voted to the All Pro team. Hufunga, our safety, he's awesome. He's a ball hawk. He goes for he tries to read things and jump into passing lanes. But because he does that, he can get caught in that, like, where he's out of position a few times, where he's looking inside and the guy's going behind him for a deep pass. So when you got those two receivers on the outside, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, going down the field, Hufunga has to be on point. Like, he can't be sneaking inside. He's got to trust his guys underneath to take care of the tackle, not go for the big interception, and just make sure that we don't get beat deep, because that's our biggest weakness, is giving up deep passes.
gotcha. Yeah, he's an awesome player. I just see like little glimpses of like Palomalu with him.
Yep.
It may be the hair, it may be the position he plays. I don't know, but either way,
They even work out together too. So you're probably right. You probably do see some of that in him, because
oh,
they
there
work
you
out
go.
together.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, but I guess that makes sense. But yeah, no. So yeah, he's an awesome player. A lot of promise. Obviously, the guys who play IDP are well aware of who he is. So that's awesome. Very curious about your prediction for the score in this one. You think it'll be high scoring? You think it's going to be a close, kind of low scoring? Where you
So
at with this
last
one?
week I came on and said that the Cowboys and the 49ers were, I think, were third and fourth in total offense as far as points scored, and I said it'll be a high scoring game. In my counterpart Seth said it'd be an ugly game, and it would be a score of, like, a weird score, and he was definitely on point. It was an ugly game. The
Right,
score was
right.
19-12, which, what kind of football game ends 19-12? But so this
Yeah,
week I'm going to go with what he said, and I'm going to take the same route there. I think it's going to be an ugly game. It'll be a defensive battle. I think both offenses can move the ball, but I think when they get down into that red zone, that's where the key is going to be. When it's kind of tight down there, who can stop the other team at that point, I think will win this game. Uh, last week I took my team. I was a little hesitant. This week I'm actually going to pick the Eagles to win, to
okay,
beat us.
okay.
A score like 21-17 or 24-17, something like that. I think it'll come down to Brock Purdy having to drive down the field and score points to either tie the game or win it. And I don't think he's ready for that moment yet. I think he ends up faltering. I think he's had a great season, a great playoffs, to this point. Even if he loses this game by 100 points, I think he's still, exceeded all expectations of what he would be as a seventh round pick. So, but I do think it comes down to Brock Purdy having to, quote unquote, go out there and win the game. And I don't think he's going to be able to do it.
Gotcha. Yeah. I've kind of have been on a roller coaster with my expectations for this game. I opened the week basically as soon as the 49ers won, I was just like, oh crap. Like I was already worried. Then like for some reason, like Tuesday morning, just kind of thinking, just kind of reflecting more on how the Eagles played against the Giants. I'm like, you know what? I think we might be okay. And now I've gone back down the hill and now I'm getting nervous again. I just think of like just who's on that defensive line, Bosa and Greenlaw, and it's just I'm just very nervous. But I do think it's going to be a very good game. I think it's going to be a close game. I agree. Um, Again, just being a jaded Philadelphia fan, this has always been the stage. Like back with like Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb,
Right.
where we had these real high expectations and they just could not follow through. Either way, so that just is always in the back of my mind. I do like our chances, but just cautiously optimistic. So
Right.
I'm with you there. Um, and again, if Brock Purdy is able to win this game, I think that would make Shanahan a lock for the coach of the year. Obviously, he's one of the finalists, and then like one of the like more likely finalists. There was like a report like it's definitely between these three guys of the group of five. So I
Right.
think if Shanahan can win this game in Philadelphia with Brock Purdy, I think to me it's a no brainer. You got to give him that trophy that night, or that award that night.
Right. Right.
Just an unbelievable staff, as well as just the fact that three that is their third quarterback. I don't need to tell you this. I'm just saying it's their third quarterback to make it this far. Unbelievably impressive.
Yeah.
and either like win or lose. It's an unbelievable season, but it is just one of these things. It's like I just want these guys to be healthy. I was like as big of a Trey Lance truther as it comes. Then like
Right.
just the devastating injury there, and then back to Jimmy G, and he's pretty solid, and he goes down. So yeah, it'll be a very interesting offseason. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
But we're not going to discuss that quite yet. But yeah, very much looking forward to this game. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be an ugly one. I think it's going to be a defensive game for sure. But I think we'll just barely inch it out. But yeah,
So if y'all go down, am I hosting the show next week? You won't be
I
back on.
I'll still host it. I'll be wearing my Penn State hat or some other hat. I won't be wearing the Eagles one just because we'll try to highlight the teams who are actually in it, right? No, but no, but that's been the deal. It'll either be next week or the week after. I'm
Week
not so
after,
sure
probably.
of myself. Yeah, just a little bit closer to the game itself. We'll have the full, you know, what's it called? Just like the media nights and everything else
Right, right.
past us at that point. So yeah, we might wait a little bit for that. But either way, if the 49ers win, open invitation to come back. That would be awesome. And then by then, hopefully, my wrinkled face of crying and being upset will be back to smooth. I'll be a normal person again in that case. But
So it's
but
funny
either
too. I don't
way,
know if I told you, but Seth actually came on my podcast. He was on yesterday actually. So I had him
gotcha,
booked
gotcha.
before the game, and I said, "Are you still coming on the show because y'all lost?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll still be there."
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, he's a good guy,
Yeah,
and definitely a good sport, for sure. But that's what makes this like fantasy football and Twitter community so great. It's like you enjoy the people's content, and it's just funny to kind of separate them out. Like, oh, these are the teams and players that these people are rooting for.
right,
It just
right.
adds another layer to how it all works. I just think it's really cool. But again, like you get to know people better. It just makes the whole experience a little bit more worthwhile and stuff. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, Jeff, again, I appreciate you coming on, you and Andrew, obviously. And, since you're here, why don't you remind everyone where they can find you and your content?
Yeah. So again, you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Lambert77. That's Jeff spelled GEOFF. If you can't see it on the screen there. In my contents at goingfor2.com, we put out a show pretty much every day at Going for Two Live on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook Live, pretty much all of them. It's all on the podcast networks too, so you can find it all there. Just search for Going for Two. It's likely to pop up for you.
I love it. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you coming on, and I do wish your team well. I just wish my team slightly better. That's all.
Sure.
But no, I'm looking forward to it, and I do appreciate you being so gracious with your time. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so good luck and
Much to you as
enjoy the
well.
games. I appreciate that, of course. Yep. So that's going to do it for part 2 of the conference championship preview. Enjoy the games and keep climbing.